Someone's got to tell me why American politicians have no idea how to talk about or to or with Black Americans. Why is this the case? Why is it that Donald Trump today, from what I am reading, I have yet to hear any of this, but from what I am reading, that man put his foot right in his mouth. It is as bad as when Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Remember that?
Oh, it was a horrible call. Yeah,
2020.
Yeah.
Very, very bad. This is as bad as pretty much anything I have ever seen a politician say. This is as bad as when Nancy Pelosi was wearing the African garb that
they're all kneeling in the Capitol Dome.
Where they're all kneeling in the rotunda.
Yeah.
Turns out that was actually the colors of a tribe that actually participated with the Portuguese in the slave trade. Not very good. This is the problem with politicians in the United States. They have no idea how to talk to Black Americans. They say things that are so bad and they do things that are so cringy, largely because they don't talk to Black people. They don't discourse with Black people. So then they say things that are just so unbelievably, it's like, how could you, this thought would never pass through my mind. Yeah, the first quote from Trump, this blew me away when I read this. This is the first time I'm hearing this, but when I read this, I thought, he didn't say this. This has got to be a meme. This has got to be a joke, right? There's no way Donald Trump, slathered up with bronzer, would go in front of the National Association of Black Journalists and say this in front of a room full of Black people, but this is what he says.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always identified as a Black woman. She went to a historically Black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear.
So what Trump is referring to there is that the AP ran a piece, remember this, in 2012, 2014.
No, not off the top of my head.
Senator, first West Indian senator.
Okay.
And it was because at the time she was both a West Indian and a Black woman, and that was the one that the AP ran with.
Sure, because she wasn't the first Black congressperson.
Exactly.
Right. Okay,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, or she was not even the first Black senator.
Right.
So and in that article, they talk about her being biracial, and they talk about how her mom is from West India and her dad is from Jamaica. This is weird Obama-era politics. You remember this? Obama's not really Black.
Oh,
you remember this?
You remember where it started?
Jeez,
we're talking about
yeah. And this is the reason that this is bad is you could be saying this with uneducated ears, and you could be saying, well, he's not saying anything wrong about it. The history in Black America is being denied your Blackness. Like, this is fundamentally, if you look at anybody who's studied ethnicity or sociology in the United States, and they're talking about African Americans, or they're talking about Black people, Blackness is something which has been denied to the grandparents and the great-grandparents of these young Black Americans. So to say this in front of those people is really, really rough. Do you know what I mean by that, by Blackness being denied?
No, I can't say honestly.
It's this idea that for Black people, in order to be accepted into the American society, they had to basically adopt and assimilate into white culture.
Oh, okay, I got it.
That's the idea,
I'm familiar
right?
with the concept, yeah.
And so you had to dress a certain way, speak a certain way, listen to a certain kind of music, go to a certain kind of church, worship in a particular way.
Yeah, and we're told the assimilation is part of the American experience.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
Yeah,
and so what many people would say is that is a denial of one's Blackness. Another way to think about it is, let's just say for whatever reason in the United States we outlawed Buddhism. You couldn't be a Buddhist in the United States. That would be the way that we might think about it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So for Trump to say this is really bad. I mean, that's really foot-in-mouth type of stuff. This is Donald Trump being asked about the January 6th riots, and I suppose he pivots. Trump pivoting? No, he doesn't use that rhetorical device.
What's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed that city?
But sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to the people that tried to
those rioters who assaulted officers.
You have to
would you pardon
what's
those
going to
people?
happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You would pardon those?
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just they were convicted by a very tough system. How come the people that tried to burn down Minneapolis, how come the people that took over a large percentage of Seattle How come nothing happened to them? How come the people
But sir, we're talking about people that were seen beating officers with flagpoles, dragging them down the stairs. They're on video. Have you seen that video, sir?
Oh, really? Well,
you would pardon those rioters?
They shot a young lady in the face who was protesting. They shot her in the face. You know, nobody died that day. You do know that. But people died in Seattle.
There are so many things wrong with this, Spike. So whataboutism is a very poor use of a rhetorical device. Whataboutism is never good in an argument because you want to address the question that's being presented to you. Whataboutism is a coward's way of arguing, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Right? It's just it's like really, and it's just annoying. And then he also says, you know, Ashley Babbitt, he's referring to the young woman who was quote unquote shot in the face. She was shot in the neck. And she was told specifically by Officer Byrd, and you can watch the footage, you can actually hear him on the footage, don't climb over that. Get off the glass.
Stop or I'll shoot.
Stop or I'll shoot.
3 different times.
And she chooses to ignore that command by an officer. Now, when George Floyd was pinned to the ground, everybody said if he had just complied, he'd still be alive. Okay, that's a fine argument. Let's use it with Ashley Babbitt. If she had just complied and backed away from the door, going into the Senate building, by the way, where senators were being actively evacuated, she would still be alive to this day. I have very little sympathy for Ashley Babbitt. You don't listen to a cop with a gun? Please, lady. Like, come on. Like, and for Trump to pull that card it's incredibly disingenuous. It's incredibly gross. It's very bad arguing. He's really bad at this.
Well, and he was in a room full of professional journalists, regardless of the ethnicity of the room.
Yeah.
He's in a room full of journalists, and he's going to try to overtalk and dodge and what about and redirect and pivot and the whole 9 yards and not answer questions.
Yeah, I
don't know how his advisors, his campaign staff,
he didn't listen to him.
Yeah.
He didn't listen to him.
I know he was told going in, this is an opportunity, but this is a very intelligent, educated professional. This is what they do for a living. You're not going to be able to blah, 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 blah. I think he thought he had a room full of Harris Faulkners stand in the room, and there was only one, and she tried to cover for him as best she could and could not.
Right, exactly. We're talking about Trump speaking to the National Association of Black Journalists. He is not, this is really bad for him. This is Trump saying Kamala Harris didn't pass her bar exam, so she might not pass her cognitive test. Here's what that sounded like.
She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exam, so maybe she wouldn't pass the cognitive test.
Mr. President, are you saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
To be clear, you don't think Harris?
How do you intend? She didn't pass her bar exam, and she didn't think she would pass it, and she didn't think she was going to ever pass it. And I don't know what happened. Maybe she passed it.
She did pass it.
There's a man.
She was the DA of San Francisco and then the AG for the state of California. You can't hold those positions without, what's that thing you need, Spike, to get those jobs?
A law degree.
That's what it is,
right? Yeah.
I
play one on the radio, but I'm not a real lawyer. I don't know.
What do you need to get your degree, to get your JD in
the Juris Doctorate?
Yeah.
Oh,
what do you need to? Isn't there a big old test that you have to pass?
Some kind of exam.
It's like a bar that you have to pass.
Yes,
it's like a threshold.
The bar exam.
The bar exam. That's what it is. Right.
That kind of just rambling and pontificating. Maybe who knows? She didn't think she ever passed. That might work on Fox and Friends.
Yes,
that might work with Laura Ingraham.
Yeah,
I'm going there.
Yeah.
It doesn't work with a room full of professionals who want answers from a man asking for their vote for president.
Yeah. Who
owe it to their audiences, to their citizenry, to do a professional job. And I said this to you yesterday. And I thought going in that this group of the National Association of Black Journalists were sandbagging Donald Trump, in so much that they knew who they were getting, they knew what he would do, and they were laying a trap for him, and that he was advised by his political consultants and his campaign staff to be wary, or maybe even some said this is probably not a great idea, but he knew better. These people love me.
Yeah, this is bad. I have not seen something this bad since the Biden performance.
Debate? I was going to say the debate. We don't have to go back far.
What was that, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago when that happened?
About 5 now. Time's ticking away fast.
This is as bad as Biden at that debate. the rambling. You know what I mean? Laura making a cheese face. Wow, is it really that bad for you too, Laura?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say why it's worse, because the Biden debate, while horrific and career-ending, it's no denying that now. It was a man who was just the victim of time. It was the victim of time.
We don't need to run interference. He's not in the race anymore.
No, I'm not trying to run interference for him, but it wasn't because he was a liar or uneducated or uninformed.
All those things are true.
Right. Well, you're right. It's a matter of degree.
He does lie.
Yes, they do. You're right. Okay, I was getting too high on my own supply. I got to be really careful. I'm having a great week. As far as my political views are concerned, Donald Trump is the kind of guy who didn't read the book report and goes in and tries to fake his way through.
Yeah,
and he does it with every issue. He did in front of the National Association of Black Journalists.
This is how it started, and this was something that was brought to my attention. I have not heard this, but if it's as bad as it was told to me, it's got to be cringe-inducing.
No, I think is this just the response, or is this the question as well?
This is the intro, right?
Yeah,
it's both.
Okay.
You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you,
pause it really quick.
Why should black voters trust you?
So he's referring to Fani Willis, or she's referring to when Donald Trump referred to Fani Willis as rabid and as an animal. Mm-hmm. The white supremacist dinner was when Trump had Nick Fuentes
at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. So these aren't accusations that are made without evidence behind them against Donald Trump. I'll be interested to hear how he responds.
After you have used language like that.
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population.
Pause it really quick. This is a awful pivot away from that. That physically pains me to say, I don't like the way that question is framed. That's the equivalent of, you remember when people used to go on Leno or Letterman or with Conan O'Brien, and they would start the interview and they would lay out their first joke and the joke didn't land, and then the actor or whoever would turn to the audience and they would go, this isn't going very well, is it? Right?
Yeah.
That reminds me a lot of that feeling where they're kind of breaking the fourth wall in a way, and they're kind of breaking. I don't like the way that question was framed. Well, as someone who's running for the president, you get asked a lot of tough questions, and big boys answer those questions. What was the rest of his answer, Laura?
Oh, that's all I pulled.
Okay. So what do you say about they're taking black jobs? What's a black job, according to Donald Trump?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16.
That's so bad. That makes me, I am physically, this is like when I watch Milo and Otis and I realize that those poor little cats and dogs, there's actually like a litter of them that they treat so horribly. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they're not going to get home. Sorry. No, I don't mean to make a joke.
This is so bad. This is so bad. What is a black job? It's anybody's job, he says. Okay, but it's like, okay, so I'm failing to, this is all non sequitur, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, not really thought through. If he wanted to say they're taking black jobs, he would have to name a specific industry, and he would have to actually show stats as to when black people are disproportionately represented within a certain industry, and then he would have to say that they're now losing those jobs based on illegal immigration. But he doesn't have those stats because, spoiler alert, I looked it up. Those stats don't exist. It's a made-up meme. It's not real. It's just something that he says. Wow, this is bad for Donald Trump.
Well,
I am in awe of how bad this is.
I actually feel bad about. I mean, last week, I felt really bad for J.D. Vance for piling on because it kept going worse and worse and worse. And I have to admit, and I feel guilty admitting it, I feel bad for former President Trump because I mean, there's no way anybody should be sent out there that ill prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the lion's den. And I'm not saying he was ambushed. I mean, not for the, what a rude question. I'm the victim here. You aren't being nice to me.
Laura,
which
thoughts?
is typical.
Well, he didn't do that great. Was it late last week or early this week in front of the Turning Point Action?
Oh, I didn't even talk about that. That was really bad.
Yeah.
In front of the Turning Point Action Committee. Yeah, that was.
I think if he doesn't have a crowd that is like at a rally and is like going to Trump rallies and just cheering all of his talking points, I don't know if he is doing a great job talking to people who might not automatically already support him.
Can we see how Fox News reacted to this? How did they react to some of these clips?
Interviewing President Trump on stage. Sandra, some interesting questions, an interesting dynamic there as well, not only with the questioners, but the crowd.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, I'm sure a lot of people stopped to watch that. Our own Harris Faulkner on the stage there, getting some questions into the former president as well.
Oh, the neutral answer is death. A lot of people stopped to watch that. Yeah, wow. Oh, man, I feel so bad for that racist.
You couldn't look away.
I mean, what announcement? Oh, a train wreck. That's what it was.
But here's the thing you got to think about, and this is just coming to me now. The depth of Trump's contempt for Americans, in particular Black Americans, is so deep that he comes to a meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists and has prepared nothing. That is the depth of his contempt, meaning that he does not have enough respect for those men and women to walk in there and say, I can field these questions, I can answer them confidently, and I will not insult these people to their faces. That's what he chose to do. And I have the same standard for Biden. When Biden was saying, I'm going to stay in the race, I'm going to stay in the race, I'm going to stay in the race. There's a certain level of contempt that you have to have for people when you refuse to listen to them, engage with them, or give them any kind of good faith position as to what you're going to do with this country.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it a race issue because, as Laura pointed out, he had the same amount of contempt for the Turning Point USA crowd. He had nothing ready for them either.
Nothing. Wow. Man, that was bad. Ew, I'm going to need a shower after this just to wash away all those bad fee-fees.
I was thinking tequila, so I'm good.